I'm Indy Nidell, and this is another exciting edition of the Great War on the Road. Now, I'm in Turkey, and I'm standing in front of the Straits of the Dardanelles. In that direction, well, that direction's the entrance, and that direction is Istanbul. Now, if you were here during the First World War, and you were lucky, there were a couple of ships you might have seen on certain days. Now, these ships were international. They changed owners, they changed names, and certainly at the beginning of the war, they played a very big part in the events of the First World War. I'm talking about what were originally two German ships named the Goeben and the Breslau. Now, the Goeben was one of two Moltke-class battle cruisers, the other being the Moltke, and the Breslau was a Magdeburg-class cruiser. So, it's August 1914. France and Germany are at war. The Goeben and the Breslau were in the Mediterranean at the time under the command of Rear Admiral Wilhelm Souchon. The French Mediterranean fleet was trying to get the French 19th Corps from the North African ports to Marseille as fast as it could so that those guys could join the fight against the million-man German army that was currently knocking on Belgium's door and just about to come through Belgium and into France. So the French fleet didn't have any manpower to spare to hunt these guys down. The Goeben tried to disrupt some of the convoy action but failed. And on the morning of August the 4th, 1914, at 9:46 a.m. off the coast of North Africa, the Goeben runs into two British battle cruisers, the Indomitable and the Indefatigable. Now you might be thinking, okay, August 4th, Britain and Germany at war, so there's going to be a fight. But no, you are mistaken, because the British ultimatum to Germany about Belgium did not expire until midnight. And that is 14 hours and 14 minutes away. So the two battle cruisers go past the Goeben and then turn around and shadow it. And they just follow it because they're thinking, we're not officially able to actually attack it. Although had they done so, I don't know if there would have been a whole lot of outcry considering what was going on, you know, in the rest of Europe. Okay, so they start sort of a race, right? The Goeben, though, is better armored than these British battle cruisers. It's also faster. However, its boilers are quite shaky, so it's a real race to see if it can maintain its speed to get away from them before nightfall, before midnight, or if its boilers will not take the strain. They do take the strain, and by the time it's dark, the Indefatigable and the Indomitable have lost the Goeben, right? So the Goeben heads to Messina, Sicily, Straits of Messina, to refuel. Now, Italy is neutral, so they know they can only be there for 24 hours. So you're thinking, well, what are the British going to do about this? Because they now know there's these two battle cruisers there, and we are at war with them past midnight. Well, the British sort of block off the Western Mediterranean, thinking that the Goeben and the Breslau are going to either try to harass the French fleet or try to join the German fleet in the North Sea. That's not what they do. They head south from the Straits of Messina. There is one British light cruiser there called the Gloucester, and the Gloucester does not engage them because it's a light cruiser and there's no way it could take on Goeben or Breslau. And they shadow the Goeben and they give the information to a small cruiser squadron that the British have guarding the approach to the Adriatic Sea, because they're thinking maybe the Goeben's going to go there and it's going to reinforce the Austro-Hungarian fleet, which is interesting because Britain was not at war with Austria-Hungary at the time. Well, the Goeben's cruising by, as battle cruisers do, and the British cruiser squadron, led by Rear Admiral Ernest Trowbridge, thinks, you know what, I've got these three cruisers. They're obsolete compared to the Goeben. They can't go nearly as fast. Its guns have a range of more than 1.5 miles longer than our guns do. So he says, let's just let it pass. We don't know where it's going, but we've blocked off the Western Mediterranean. It's not coming into the Adriatic. It's not a big deal. Oh, okay, it was a big deal to him. He actually started crying when he made the order, but they let it pass. Okay, story over. No, story not over, because a couple days later, the Goeben and the Breslau come cruising in here, right, through the Dardanelles, up the Sea of Marmara, and head for Constantinople. The Ottoman Empire was not in the war at the time. They were still neutral. So what are these guys going to do? Because they can't just stay there. You can't, like, host enemy warships when you're neutral without breaking your neutrality. Well, this is where it got a little clever, what the Germans and the Ottomans did. The Germans sold the two ships to the Ottoman Empire. There was a specific reason for this. Now, I'm going to flash back a little to earlier in the year. the Ottoman Empire, after the Balkan Wars, had commissioned a couple of dreadnought battleships from the British that they were going to use to try and retake positions from Greece that they had lost during the Balkan Wars. Now, these ships had been being built all during 1914. And during the summer, Winston Churchill, the First Lord of the Admiralty, was eyeing these ships and thinking, it looks like there's going to be a war, and this looks like a potential enemy. It would be kind of dumb to give them 2 dreadnought battleships, even though they paid for them. But legally, Britain wasn't at war with anybody. The Ottomans weren't at war with anybody, so you can't really just seize those battleships. However, on August 1st, once the war was really starting, that is what the British did. On August 1st, 1914, they seized those dreadnought battleships, which the Ottomans had paid for, not out of just government funds or anything, but by public subscription. It was the people of the Ottoman Empire who'd given their own money to buy these ships, and the British seized them. So now, the Germans say, well, you know, since the British did that, we're going to sell you these 2 beautiful new ships, the Goeben and the Breslau, and you're going to be very happy. And to take it from there is our local historian and guy that we can't do one of these videos out, John. John, can you come in here for a second?
Thank you, Indy.
Now, the first thing I want you to tell us is, what were the names of those of the dreadnought battleships that the British were building? What were the Turkish names?
Well, it was Sultan Osman, named after the first Ottoman Sultan, and Reşadiye, named after Mehmet V, the Ottoman Sultan at the time that the ships were being paid for.
Those are pretty heavy-duty names.
Well, they are. They definitely are.
But these ships were supposed to be the main ships of the fleet, right?
Exactly. They were supposed to be the ships that would threaten the Russian Navy in the Black Sea, because the animosity between the Russians and the Ottomans was causing a potential naval competition in that sea.
So the Goeben and the Breslau are there. Now they renamed them.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And they were renamed. Goeben was renamed Yavuz after Ottoman Sultan Yavuz Sultan Selim, and the other one was renamed Midilli, and Midilli means pony in Turkish, actually.
Pony?
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of cute, I guess, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've got these ships. Now, how were they crewed? Did they give them new Ottoman crews? Or?
No, actually, this is one of the rather ironic parts of the whole story, is that the German crew were given fezzes, and the commander of the ships, Admiral Sushon, became the head of the Ottoman Navy. So suddenly, overnight, they became Ottoman ships.
See, this was great PR for Germany, and really bad PR for the British, because they could, because you know, Enver Pasha, who was, you know, orchestrating a lot of this, he could say, look at those backstabbing British. Can you believe this? We're not at war. They're not at war, and they stole our ships. And look what these nice Germans have done for us.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there's also something important in this. I mean, we all know that Enver Pasha literally ran over the cabinet and everybody else in his way in order to make sure the Ottoman Empire allied with the Germans. And the German intelligence and the propaganda machine worked perfectly in this situation, because when these ships showed up in Istanbul, the people were jubilant. Oh my God, you know, the British backstabbed us, as you say, and Enver Pasha made the right decision by allying with the Germans, and now we have a beautiful flagship.
And what did those ships do later on in the year? Because that's pretty instrumental. We did actually mention this in regular episodes.
True.
But let's go over it again.
Yeah, well, these 2 ships were given immediate orders to sail to the Black Sea, where they ended up bombing Sevastopol, and that meant that the Ottoman Empire ended up entering the war against the Allies.
Because Russia declared war on the Ottoman Empire. So they were instrumental in bringing the Ottoman Empire into the war. Now, for the rest of the war, they were mostly in the Black Sea, right?
Well, actually, they were in the Black Sea, but during the Gallipoli campaign, obviously, they were kept protected against British submarines, which we have mentioned. But it was like the shadow of fear against the entire Russian Black Sea Navy. So it provided the Ottomans with a psychological and tactical advantage by having the ship there. But of course, what happened after the war is completely different.
Now, there was at least one time when the Goeben and the Breslau, the
Yavuz and
Midilli did leave the Dardanelles. At the Battle of Imbros in January 1918, where the Goeben sank 2 monitors but was herself damaged by mines but survived, but the Breslau was sunk.
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay, but the Goeben did actually make it back.
Well, after the Ottoman Navy, it basically became the flagship of the Turkish Navy.
Okay.
which is quite interesting. As you can tell, many of the battleships from the First World War lasted all the way to the Second World War.
Okay.
And until the Turkish government decided to turn it into razor blades, it remained the battleship, the flagship, for nearly 3 decades.
And that is actually true. Its fate eventually was being turned into razor blades. You can look it up yourself. It was decommissioned in 1950, but that's beyond us.
Yes,
We just talk about this war.
Yeah.
So I figured you guys would find that interesting because we had so much to cover the first 3 episodes of this channel that we didn't get to talk about Goeben and Breslau and their adventures in the Mediterranean. All right, well, thank you very much, John, for today.
You're welcome.
It's always fun working with him.
Same here.
Yeah. And if you guys want to see an even crazier story about ships that were named after cute animals, and I'm not kidding, you guys are going to love this if you haven't seen it, you can click right here for our episode about the Battle of Lake Tanganyika. And do not forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, just like John does. See you next time.